Okay, hello and welcome everyone. In this video, we will be talking about how you can get started with building your first application in Site 5, and hopefully that will help everyone start building their own applications in Site 5 for our hackathon. So the best way to get started and to learn 5 is actually jumping onto our websites and going to our documentation, which can be found from this link over here. And now you want to click on get started, and now you have access to our documentation. Here you'll see that you have a bunch of menus. What you want to do is you want to go to getting started, and now you'll have access to our quick start guide. So basically we will be covering this quick start guide in this video, and hopefully that will make everyone get acquainted with 5, and hopefully that will generate some ideas in your head and you can make your first application for a hackathon. Okay, so first step, creating an application. So let's see how we can do that. So go ahead and open up 5. And now when you open up 5, this is the first page that you will see, which is a landing page. Now what you want to do is you want to click on applications. And now you want to click on add item. And just now what you want to do is you want to start naming your first application. For the purpose of this video, we can name it anything. I'll just call it the portfolio app, just the portfolio app. And then click on save. After clicking on save, you'll have access to this blue manage button. Go ahead and click on that. And bam, now you're inside the development environment of 5. Now you have access to all the bunch of features that you can use to start building your applications. You can hit on the run button to basically run your application. So let me just run you and show you what a blank app in Site 5 looks like. And now you see you get your application. So pretty easy and pretty quick. Okay, so going back to your documentation. So the second step talks about building database tables. So what we are doing here inside a quick start guide is we are building a very simple portfolio application, which can basically you'll understand this by reading the introduction. But yeah. Okay, so talking about building this portfolio application, what we want is we want 5 tables in these app. So we have the portfolio table, we have an exchange table, we have a stock sector and a stock price table. Okay, so let's see how we can build these tables inside 5. So if you actually scroll down to the documentation, you'll find that we have basically detailed steps of how you can do this. But let me show you. So get started building your table inside 5. You want to go to data, then tables. You want to click on new table wizard over here, which is indicated by this lightning icon. After a new table wizard, start by naming your table. So let's go back to our documentation and see what is the first table that we are building. So the first table you want to build is the portfolio table. And in the portfolio table, we only have one field called as the name field, which is over here. Okay, so let's name it the portfolio table. And then let's add a field called as name. And let's give it a size of 100. After that, let's just click on save. Okay, so that's how you can easily build tables inside 5. Now what I want you to do is go to documentation. Here you'll find steps to build 4 other tables, which are exchanges, sectors, stock, and stock prices. So go ahead, follow these steps, and then come back to this video. Okay, so after you have built all of your tables by going through the documentation, you'll have an exchange table with these 2 fields called as exchange code and name. You'll have a portfolio table with the field called as name. Similarly, a sector table, a stock table, and a stock price table, which will contain a lot of details such as price date, open, high, low, close, and volume. One thing that you must have noticed is that we have not made any primary keys for any tables, but you'll still see that you'll have a primary key for every table. That is because 5 creates your primary keys for you. Okay, so now since we have built our tables, let's see what the next step wants us to do. So going back to our documentation. So the third step wants us to import some data into the tables that we just built. So right here you can see that we have some dummy data for our exchange, sector, stock, and stock price table. So go ahead and download them by just clicking on them. Okay, so once you have downloaded them, go back to 5. And now basically what we want is we want to import these data into our respective tables. Now that can be done by clicking on import CSV into table button, which is over here. Click on that. And now first let's select our table. Let's just populate the exchange table. You can click on replace existing data, but right now our tables are completely empty, so we don't want to do that. Let's choose file, select our exchange table. And as you can see, 5 automatically recognizes which fields need to be replaced by which fields in the CSV because they're named exactly the same. Click on save. Now import of CSV is completed successful. Now do the same step for the rest of the tables. We have save, and we are good to go. We have imported some data into a CSV. Let's go back to documentation again. The next step is creating forms out of those tables that we just built. So if you scroll down, you'll see that it talks about building the basics form. Let's cover how we can build the first form inside 5. So go back to 5. Now what you want to do is you want to click on visuals and now then forms. Now what you want to do is you want to click on this button called as new form wizard. Now you want to select the table of which you want to build a form of. Let's start by talking about a portfolio table. So when you select portfolio, you'll see most of the information is automatically filled in for you. So basically you want all of this information and you really want this button add menu item to be toggled, because what it does is when you 5 will automatically put this form as a menu item once you've done building it. So what that means is after you have saved this form, it will be automatically pushed into the front end and it will be visible in our app. Okay, so we select portfolio, we want to click on next. Now you see we already have a name field in our form. Let's go ahead and click save. Similarly, we want to do that for our rest of the forms. So we have our we have our exchange form and we have our sectors form. So go ahead and build the exchange and sector forms, and after that I'll show you how we can build the stocks and the stock price form as well. So go ahead and build the exchange and sector form and come back to this video. Okay, so now since you have built your exchanges and your sectors form, now let's go ahead and run the application and see what it looks like. Remember, we just built a table and a form, and now you can see we already have a bunch of things in our front end. We have an interface for our portfolio form, similar for our exchange form, but this one has some data in it already, and our sectors form as well. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to, according to our documentation, now what we're going to do is we want to build our stocks form. Okay, so let's go back to our, let's create a new form and let's click on new form wizard. Now I want to select my stock form, but this time I want to disable the add menu item because currently I don't want my stock form to appear into my front end directly. Now let's click on next. Let's just display them all in the list and click on save. Okay, let's click on new form wizard again. Let's do the same for our stock price table. Disable the add menu item because I don't want this to appear in the front end as well. Click on next and let's just display the price date on the list as well. And save. And bam, you have built all your forms for your tables. Okay, so let's going back to our documentation. So the next step is adding pages to our forms. Okay, so in this step, basically what we are doing is we're adding our stock prices and a stock form as pages inside the sector and our exchange form. Okay, so let me show you how you can do that. Go to 5, go to your forms. Now let's start by clicking on our exchange form, and now what you're going to do is you want to click on pages. Here what you want to do is you want to add a new page and give it a caption. Since we are attaching our stock form, let's just call it stock. Page type can be a list and my action is my stocks form. Click on save, go back to your sector table. Okay, go ahead and save it. Now let's do the same thing but for our sectors form. Click on pages, add a new page, give it a caption, Select page type as list and action as your stocks form. Now the last thing what I want to do is I want to attach my stock prices table as a page inside my stock table. So let's go to stock, go to page, call it prices, select as a list, and your action can be your stock prices form this time. Click on save, save again. Now let's run our application and see what changes we have done. Okay, so things pretty much look the same, but this time when you click on your exchange table, now you'll see you have this page called as stock. You click on it, now you can see every stock for that particular exchange, including the sector, the stock code, and the name. You can even click on them and then look at their prices. And that is because you have attached a stock price table as a form inside your stock table. Okay. So let's see what our next step is now after attaching our pages. So going back to our documentation, you'll see after adding pages to our forms, our next step is running an application, but we have already done that many times. So let's just go to the next step. Now this is filtering data in a report, and this is just talking about building and writing SQL inside 5. So let's navigate down and see what kind of query do we want to build. So as you can see, we want to build a query called as daily, which calculates the daily volume. So let's go to 5. Let's go to visual. Click on queries. Add a new query. Call it the daily volume query. Now what you want to do is you want to double click on click to add over here. Now from this interface, 5 allows you to build your own queries inside it. In the SQL tab, basically you have a code editor which is similar to MySQL Workbench, so you can pretty much write any sort of SQL over here. So let's just select all from your stock table. Let's run it, and now you see we have all of our data in front of me. So pretty much you have all the freedom to write your own SQL here. What I'll be covering today is the designer. What I'll be covering is the designer. So basically it's a visual way through which you can build your own query. So let's go back to our documentation and see what kind of query do we want to build. Okay, so as we scroll down and down, okay, we see that we want a query that shows the price date, the stock date, the name, and the volume, and it has basically sorted the price date and the stock date in ascending order. Okay, so let's go back to 5. Now let's select our stock table and our stock prices table. Zoom out a bit. Oh, zoomed out too much. Okay, so now here I want to display my price date, the name, the volume, and I guess the last thing was, let's go back for a quick reference, was the stock code. So let's go back, select the stock code, and now we have everything. Let's sort the price date in ascending order. So you can do that by clicking on sort, click on ascending, and let's do the same thing for our stock code, ascending as well. Okay, now let's click on run, and now you see our query is working. Let's click on save, and now you have easily built your first query inside 5. Okay, so now you have built your first query. Now what you want to do is you want to go and click on fields. So let's make a few changes over here. That is, let's double click on our price date. Now as I can see, my price date has a data type of display type of text. So let's change that to a display type of date, and let's save it. So basically this is to show that you can actually mess around with the data types and display types of any fields over here, and you have the freedom to play around with that. Okay, remember to always check your fields before you save your query. So after that, let's save it. Okay, now after saving, let's see what our next step is from our documentation. Okay, so now you can see the next step, the 8th step is basically we want to create charts out of the query that we just built. So let's go back to 5, click on visuals, and now click on chart wizard. Now here you can see, first you give your chart an appropriate title. I'll call it daily volume chart. Let's attach our query to it. And now let's select value for x value column. That can be the price date. And for our y value, we can select our volume. Now you can see we have a fancy chart over here. Let's give it title. I'll just call it the test chart. Maybe. Yep. Let's see if it works. Show chart title, and you can see you have a title on your top. Okay, you can give basically the last thing I'm going to talk about is your color picker. Now basically here you can give your chart any color. I'll just give it a light green color so it's pleasing to the eyes. And there you go. No, it's too light. Let's give it a little darker one. There you go. Okay, so and now here basically. Okay, one more thing is now you can change the chart type of your graph. Over this section, you see that you have written bar over here. You can just click on the lookup and select any different type of chart that you want to. Let's say you want to select horizontal bar graph, so it look like this, a pie chart, or anything else. But I'll keep it a bar chart for now because it looks good. Go ahead and click on save, and you are done. If you want to ever go back to your chart, what you can do is you can click on visual, click on charts, and now here you see that you have your chart right in front of you. If you want to edit it, you can go to datasets, double click on that, go to chart area datasets, click your test chart, and now you see you have all your details over here. Okay. Now let's see what our next step wants us to do. So going back to our documentation, clicking on the next step, which is designing a dashboard. Basically what we're doing in this step is that we have built a query and a dashboard and a chart. Now we want to show them in our app through a dashboard. So let me show you how you can do that. Okay, going back to tier 5. You want to click on visual, but this time dashboards. After clicking on dashboards, let's add a new item and call it our daily volume dashboard. Now, basically dashboards work in a very grid-like manner. So let's say if you had like 2 columns and 1 row, so basically you'll be able to place 2 items in this dashboard's column wise and only have 1 row. But if you have 2 columns and 2 rows, then you would be able to place 4 items in total, which is 2 column wise and 2 row wise. Okay, so for this dashboard, what we want is only 1 column and 2 rows because we want to place our chart on the top and our query on the bottom. After you're done with that, click on actions. Let's add a new action. Select our base position as the one on the top. Save it. Now let's select our chart. Click on save again. Let's add another item. This time our page position is the bottom one. And now let's select our query. Hit on save and then save again. The last step from our documentation is basically to add this dashboard as a menu item. Let me show you. Go to 5, select on visuals, now a menus. Okay, so after you go into menus, click on add item, give it a dashboard. I'll just call it the daily volume. And that's it. Menu order of 4 so that it appears 4th on the list, and attach my dashboard into it. Click on save, and now let's run our application and see what changes we have brought. Now you see we have a new menu item on the left called as daily volume. So let's click on that. And now you see we have a big bar graph and a report, which is our query down on the bottom. Okay. Okay, going back into our documentation. Then one extra step which we can is, and it's actually really important, which is designing and attaching a theme. It's really important that your applications work good, but it's also really important that they'll look good as well. Okay, so let me show you. Go back to 5. In order to actually play around with the look of your application, what you can do is you can click on setup, and now you have something called as themes over here. You can add a new item here, name your theme. I'll just call it my new theme. Double click on click to edit theme, and now you have a point and click theme editor. And now basically you can change any look of your application. So let's say if you want to change the color of the blue navigation bar. So let's just click on that and basically select any color of your choice from here. So let's say if you want to make it a black color, so now it's black. Want to make it white, so now it's white. You can also change the fonts from here to anyone you want. Basically, you can just click around and find what you can change over here. What you can also do is you can click on advanced, and now you have CSS, basically the entire CSS for your entire application. And you can basically, if you like doing CSS, you pretty much have the freedom to change around anything that you want over here. For your reference, what I have here is some pre-written CSS. So what I'll do is I'll just copy it and I'll just paste it over here. Now if I go back to my point and click editor, you can see that my theme already looks way different. Let's save it. Let's save it again. Now last step is attaching my theme into my instance. So go to your instance, click on your default instance, and now attach your theme to your instance. Basically, an application can have any number of instances, and each instance can have its own theme and logos, so that all of basically your one app can have many different looks. After that, save it. Select any user interface from Boston to New York. If you select on Boston, your menus will appear on the left, and if you select New York, your menus will appear on the top. Click on Boston, click on save. Let's hit on run. And now you see my app already looks way different. So if I go to my chart, you can see that a lot of things have changed. It looks way cleaner now. My sector forms, my exchange form, and everything else. Okay, so in a short span, we have actually learned how to build a very simple application inside 5 by just simply following our documentation. Now, if you want to learn even about the more advanced feature of 5, so what you can do is you can go through this intermediate section, which will actually cover about more of the advanced features of 5, like performing calculations, adding custom code, and etc. So if you like this video, make sure to stay tuned. Hopefully this will help in your hackathon and you can get started with building your application. Can't wait to see everyone's submissions. Make sure to stay tuned because there'll be more videos eventually over time, so that will keep on helping you over the hackathon. Okay, so until then, thank you everyone and see you all very soon.